The energy.
Zoltan. Zoltan quick shot. Yeah.
Zoltan's. That is such an obscure reference.
Yeah.
My God. Welcome to the Casa Desk. I am, of course, Oisin. I am joined, as usual, by the fantastic, jovial giant that is going to be Dagda. We got ourselves an interesting one. Again, Discord were split. The analysts were split. How do you feel about the matchup?
I'm kind of leaning towards red. I've actually been really impressed with them. Myself and Ox were actually having a conversation last night. We both kind of agreed. It feels like, apart from Ornn, red kind of feel like the smartest team in how they play the map. And I'm excited to see what they can do going up against PSG Talon, because last time they struggled PSG Talon struggled a lot with early map pressure, neutral objectives. Want to see if we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is a big moment in this group. You're sitting at 1-1. A lot of these teams searching for themselves to have that second place. And this is a big moment for everyone here involved, because again, you want to be in a position to be able to make it to that Rumble stage, and it has to start from your first game. You have to take that first important step.
Yeah, and look, I think as well for like PSG Talon, kind of like our still at desk was saying, like waking up as the tournament has gone on. We saw Hanabi with that incredible Nair ultimate yesterday. It feels like you're going to be relying on him to really step up once more now that he is back in the roster again. Absolutely.
I love how you said waking up as the guy on screen. This is a massive yawn. It's just it depends. Well, he's actually in Busan. It shouldn't be that early at all, but. Again, this is going to be an interesting one. I do like what Raz said as well, right at the end there, that PSG have felt like they're warming up. They're slowly getting through the gears. It's been a bit of a tug and a pull, but you are starting to see that momentum building for them, and it can come down to just that momentum.
And it felt like you needed to kind of go back to like the old classic here for PSG Talon against Istanbul Wildcats yesterday. We saw them go for neutral objective fights, play for the 5v5. That worked out so much better for them, and now I want to see if we're going to get the same kind of idea here from PSG Talon going up against Red Canids.
Well, we're going to see exactly what they want to go for. And the Lucian ban on the blue side, again, something that has just been so unbelievably powerful, and something that we haven't seen just yet, but the flex power you get with that needs to be taken off the board.
Yeah, it's just insanely strong at the moment. Ari as well being taken off the board. I think that's a good shout from Red Canids. So very excited now to see kind of what the game plan will be as we start to roll on through this, because we've kind of started to see like a lot of the bot lane focus as well coming through, with picks like the Smear being banned away pretty often, but we'll have to see if that's going to be the plan here as we start to roll on through.
Again, you know, unless you're Holy Phoenix, we have seen a couple of AD carry bans, not as heavy, but this is what they're going to go for right now. So the Lucian, the Jhin, these are the semi big picks we've seen in the AD carry role, because again, we have seen the likes of the Aphelios and the Jinx just fall off so damn hard.
And I really like the ban of the Jhin here as well, kind of giving that respect to Cheaton, who has been really good, at least when we saw him in some of these games, kind of moving from that bot side, like helping Grevthar in the mid lane. They had that cool Zoe Jhin combo that they worked off of. So already you can see PSG Talon kind of learning from past mistakes and seeing if they can bring themselves through to a nice spot. Gangplank being taken off the board as well from Hanabi, but I still feel like I'm looking at things like the Nair for Hanabi in that top lane. It's just such a potent pick for him.
Yeah, and the Gwen going to take away as well. Something that has just crept her way back into the meta, and it comes down to how the priorities have gone. So we'll see what they want to try and now move into that top side.
It does mean though that Guigo's Camille is open still, and that's such a big pick for him. We've even saw them try to do this like Camille Galio combo, which we got the Mordekaiser coming through from Starscreen that really interrupted that, but super strong combo, and see if maybe they can actually go towards that once more. Guigo as well has really stepped up over the course of this tournament. He's actually the highest damage percent when you look at Red Canids, sitting at 27%. So certainly having that comfort pick available for him is going to mean a lot here for Red Canids.
And the funny thing is that, obviously Guigo has played the Camille so far this tournament, played up against the fast-paced Wildcats, and this is going to be a big thing for them. They lost that game, sadly, but it was very much a setup of it looked solid. They were dealing with the side lane. They got that big engage coming into them. And again, the Camille and the Galio is something that they are very, very comfortable using, which also just facilitates Cheaton on this AD carry.
Yeah, and it's actually going to be going back towards the Ezreal. So we've kind of seen Red Canids go towards these kind of self-reliant AD carries with the Jhin, the Ezreal as well, where you're going to be trying to play more for, hey, we want to try and play towards Grevthar in the mid lane, try and play off of our two lanes, our two solo lanes, and set ourselves up nicely. So already you can see a pretty nice poke composition being set up, whereas already when we talk about the identity of PSG Talon wanting to play for neutral objective fights, it looks like they're already kind of set up nicely here with the Wukong and potentially the Senna here.
See where they want to go. A lot of invisibility, camouflage, any other kind of term that basically makes it very difficult if you want to try and land it onto a particular target. But they might try and just swap out the last second over to the Kai'Sa. It has been one of the more fringe picks, but Kai'Sa is just one of those historically fantastic picks, just getting in with that dive composition.
I love the exactly, and that's why I like the Kai'Sa here, but also just because you tend to get a bit of a free lane against the Ezreal, so not going to be able to bully too heavily with the shorter range, and also just gives you that backline assassination damage with the Wukong as well. So if you ever get this good flank from Juhan, who I assume is going to be piloting the Wukong, you can do a lot of damage in towards the likes of Zoe, of these things that are going to be a little bit more exposed on the backline.
And again, you mentioned it as well. We are seeing two very distinct compositions forming straight off the bat. Very hard engage with dive potential for PSG, and more of a, I suppose, if you survive, you win the fight kind of setup here now for side of Red Canids.
Well, that's why I really like the Renata coming through, right? You've got a very heavy short dive, short range composition for PSG, something that Renata is wonderful against, right? You get that hostile takeover out, turn everyone berserk, and allows you to kind of buy that distance for people like the Zoe and the Ezreal. But always when I see things like Zoe, Ezreal, I'm like, okay, you're spiking super hard around 2 items, but if you do start to fall behind, Zoe not a champion that does particularly well from that spot. You know, Ezreal will get outscaled by this Kai'Sa, so you definitely need to be hitting the ground running as Red Canids.
Absolutely, and now we're going to start to see the top lane and jungle pool start to get whittled away depending on which side of the matchup you're on. I think taking away the Viego is very smart. I wouldn't mind maybe even taking away something like the Volibear as well, something that can just kind of deal with the Wukong in those early stages, maybe even go towards something else, but we got ourselves Juhan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking a lot at the likes of the Lee Sin, maybe something like a Jarvan as well could work really well here. Just something to kind of get the party started and even try and lock up things like the Wukong. I know he can hop over walls, but usually you'll see a Wukong kind of use that to find the engage, like set up for that big ultimate. So if you can lock him in place, maybe buy a little bit more breathing room for your backline.
Well, the Kennen banned away as well. Again, these very safe top lane picks that are not longer going to be available. And then there is Guigo's Camille being banned away. Honestly, it felt with the Kennen and the Gnar ban, it was very much leaning towards saying, look, we're very happy taking this. You have to chuck a ban this way.
Well, that's the thing. We kind of seen Guigo always go towards these more split push oriented champions. So kind of curious to see now what the game plan is going to be for him. You're maybe looking at the Gnar. Or sorry, the Gnar's already gone. So maybe you're looking at something like the Sion, the Ornn. Maybe he wants to go back towards that like, big tank player and like set up this front line. But we'll have to see because he's going to hold on to that counter pick at the end. But there's that Jarvan we were talking about. Give that early game of pressure. Allow you to try and snowball these two AD carry and mid lane who like this 2-item spike and work alongside that.
Absolutely, and it gives, as you said, gives you that little bit of an ignition, that kind of go symbol to kind of say, like, right, we got at least a little bit of engage. We're not always relying on the disengage or the, you know, the kind of the bounce back you get with something like a Renata and a Zoe. So now you're gonna. This is just full dive.
Yeah.
This is hitting the ground of your car with the pedal in 5th gear. There's no stopping this.
No, this is okay. We're flying in. If we're ahead, class. If not, this is gonna get real ugly real quick.
We're gonna make it so crazily weird that it's gonna happen one way or the other. And honestly, the Aurelia would fit very nicely into that wheelhouse as well. You're just going full dive all the time. However, it is very one note and it is very set up. Never mind, it's even more in terms of the 5v5. You're just basically saying, look, we want to fight around objectives. We want to try and get that front to back team fight, and we're going to go in and truck everything at it.
But this is where PSG have shown, right? Like back when you look at them in the PCS, one of the big strengths and the reason that they came out top of the table was these neutral objective fights, being able to come back from these deficits, and they set up the map well for those fights. So having a composition that can play to, you know, have a front line that can face check with the Ornn, with the Leona, having good flank opportunities with the Vex and also this Wukong, it feels like you're looking towards those early dragons, looking to set up for those neutral objectives. Whereas when you look across the opposite side with the Aatrox counter pick locked in for Guigo, you're definitely trying to see if you can find a little bit of a snowball here, because you will just get outmatched and outpaced by PSG Talon as this game goes on.
I love how you mentioned that as well. You're kind of looking for a snowball. I feel like it is very much like if the poke comp gets ahead, amazing. If it falls behind, feels kind of useless, especially against a team that's going to be jumping on your face. And honestly, the exact same thing in opposite is the exact same result. If you have a 5v5 comp that wants to dive and you're ahead, fantastic. You fall behind against a poke comp, there is nothing you're going to be able to do.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of kind of facets of Red Canids, right? Poke is definitely one of them, but you do actually have some decent team fighting as well, with the Zoe and the Ezreal being able to follow up on engages from Aatrox and like kind of the Jarvan set to enable all that. But I definitely think they're going to have to work cut out for them. I mean, the way that they can start to get the snowball rolling is by using the pressure that you have in mid. See if maybe you can get Jojo to roam around the map. He's been doing really a good job of that throughout MSI, and maybe look at plays towards Grevthar, look at plays towards Guigo on the top side, and see if you can just start to take over through these solo lanes.
We'll have to wait and see it again. Big game for both of these teams sitting on 1-1. You feel like it's anyone's game to be able to take that second spot from the, in this group, and it is feeling a lot more like whoever takes that first step is just going to have such a massive advantage. You're running out of games.
Especially as Ox was pointing out, right? The rock, paper, scissors that's been going on between Free Pay Wildcats, between PSG Talon, between Red Canids. Like, it feels like any inch you can get can turn into a mile.
Crowd is ready. The teams are on the rift, and we're going to start off today. Could potentially be a banger. That being said, we have to make do, you know, kind of like look back to history a little bit and say, like, last time this happened, Red were just so much better. They just dominated from top to bottom, and this is where I want to see the adaptation coming in here for PSG. How have they learned, and what have they changed?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things that we saw was Jojo being super active in the early game in the last time these two teams faced up. Like, moved up towards Guigo, helped him win his lane super hard in that top side, and then you kind of look at the team constantly being able to like play off 2 lanes, overload one side of the map, and like catch PSG Talon out. And then that eventually kind of fed itself in towards like team fights and neutrals and everything. So it definitely feels like for PSG Talon trying to at least hold a better control of this early game is going to be very important.
I'm going to get some early vision being popped down by both teams, and Kaiwing now saying, haha, I have a sweeper, so I'm going to be able to take that nice little bit of gold. They'll probably give it over to the AD carry, get him nice and set up so they can get maybe an early level 2 and try and make something work.
That's why I was actually surprised they didn't give it to Bane, because then you can actually hit the early level 2 off of, but you're not really going to make too much of a difference in the 2v2 just from the way the experience works. But either way now, we'll just have to see as Juhan going to start up on this top side. Will be matched by Aegis as well. And it does feel like, at least at the moment, you probably see Aegis go for some sort of like 3 camp clear. Potential to go for a bot side dive if he wants, but at least Jojo should be able to help push in this wave with Cheetan just because of the range advantage that you have there.
I'm probably going to have a not real action, you know, biggest, you know, kind of failure words from a caster in the early stages, but I wanted to talk a little bit of kind of why we're seeing the Wukong come back into prominence. Where has it come? Because again, this is something that wasn't really seen at all in the regular season of anyone's league, and now all of a sudden it's kind of just seen first pick priority.
Yeah, I mean, the big change to him was the W being able to get over walls. It's just super nice. Alright, just gonna see the W pop, but definitely having the opportunity to like hop over walls, come in from creative angles, like definitely helped him quite a bit. And then just getting the damage buff for as a jungler is super nice as well. So it's just been great to see Juhan kind of coming, or at least the Wukong rise in prominence here as well, just to kind of become that big pick that we're seeing. When you get to late game team fights, he's incredibly strong as well. So teams have massively been favoring this Wukong.
It does work out for the side of PSG. Of course, your first few levels, as you mentioned there, not as exceptional as when you're starting to get that cyclone, those levels kind of, you know, in your ultimate and moving forward as well. So see how they end up kind of pathing. And this isn't kind of just expected to see in this lane. Kai'Sa is okay at clearing the waves, but when you have a Renata with her passive being able to do extra damage onto minions, it does mean you just naturally get the push it.
Yeah, and just the big range difference is going to help out there. It does mean as well for Aegis, should be able to get the scuttle on the bottom side, and Juhan will probably have to repeat himself back up towards his top lane. Although, he's just going to kind of poke his head in here to see that the Jarvan has already taken the crab. But
yeah, there it is. He knows, sees the Demacian standard as well, so they know exactly where this Jarvan is, or at least a very, very rough estimate. Is Aegis going to just push himself up towards that top side, and they got priority in mid and top, so they're going to do the double scuttle.
And this is kind of the downside to the Wukong jungle, is that he's not particularly strong in these early stages, and especially, as we said, when you have like push in bot, push in mid, it becomes a lot more difficult for you to actually try and contest these. So at least at the moment, Aegis is going to do a decent job of getting himself the double scuttle, set himself up nicely, as on the opposite side, Juhan just going to roam in and get some vision down to spot out where Aegis is going to go in his next clear.
That's 2 exhausts in 4 minutes. That's so annoying. Yeah. It's just not, and look, you're not going to die because it's still super early. Well, I hope you're not going to die, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, what are you supposed to do against that? 2 double summoners are just burned on you in the first 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this is kind of the problem with Zoe, right? Like, super strong in the early stages. She gets great push from level 1. You get access to all these magical items that you can just pick up. So it becomes quite an oppressive lane to play against. And that's why I think for Aegis, I want to see him kind of utilizing that fact, right? You have 3 pushing lanes. You've got the opportunity to kind of be a bit dominant. Maybe look to go for some invades on towards Juhan as well before he hits that level 6. But we'll have to see if Red Canids can kind of get that play up and rolling.
See a good trade here from Guigo onto Hanabi now, and just making it so as obvious as possible. Hanabi making good use of the Ornn passive, gets himself a Bramble Vest as soon as possible. He gets himself back up towards the top side. Even as the grasp the Undying just to try and keep himself alive. And that's all this is. It's just about surviving into the Aatrox, because if the Aatrox can get a kill or two, that lane becomes impossible to deal with.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of talking about earlier on. I want to see Red Canids kind of playing up towards this top side, like unlocking Jojo from the bot lane, especially as the game starts to go on, right? Like we're at, oh, hang on.
Oh, a little bit disconnected there with the engage. They do get Grevthar's flash, but it does cost Kaiwing his.
Yeah, just about able to get out of there with the flash. So nicely done by PSG Talon to burn that, and just trying to make a little bit of honest folk out of Red Canids at the moment as well, so they can't continue to have as much control as they have. So as I was saying, like the 5 minutes hit, but you are looking at, like, you know, the 7 minutes, the 8 minutes where you start to think about that Grevthar coming up, and with Jojo having that control on bot side, he should be able to get to roam up first, link up Aegis, and maybe look for a play up top side, especially if Hanabi continues to take this punishment from Guigo.
I was just about to bring it up. We are starting to see mid laners with that level 6. That Shadow Surge is now available. You, of course, have the ultimate coming in for Ornn and Aatrox as well. So we're starting to see some pretty big power spikes. But when you have this priority in mid and in bot, it means these dragons are pretty much yours to take. So first dragon going over to the side of red. They're very happy with how this early game has gone so far. And it is just about accruing those small little advantages before you can take a big fight.
Yeah, and especially when you're looking towards, as you said, like the major neutral that we start to see these early stages. Not a Cloud Dragon, I'm talking about Rift Herald. And making sure that you can actually set up for those fights. And look, Guigo at the moment, at least the wave is pushing him towards him, but that should hit his tower, he bounces that back out. Grevthar should be able to get control of his wave as well. And then it becomes a little bit more difficult for PSG Talon to try and fight against this. And I'm expecting looking at Juhan as well, because as you saw in the experience, he's only just hit level 5. So we'll definitely need to start clearing out some of these camps post-haste so we can actually hit that level 6 for the Rift Herald fights.
This has been a much more tempered and controlled start than we've probably seen all MSI, to be perfectly honest. Most teams have had a pretty definitive game plan of how and when they want to try and fight, usually immediately. Yeah. And both these teams are very happy to kind of see where the wave states and where the game state goes.
But for PSG Talon, right, you're not in under any pressure. You're going to have this Kai'Sa who's going for this crit build. She's going to be super strong when she gets the Kraken Slayer in the later portion of the game. You got the Ornn, you got a great team fight. Like, there's no real pressure on you as PSG Talon to get this ball rolling. It is more on Red Canids to make sure that they're playing this mid-game well to set themselves up. But at the moment, we're kind of seeing, as you say, a bit of a slower pace. At least with this push now for the bot side, we're talking about already, you should be able to get this Crash to move to Rift Herald, but the Vex here to see if she can disrupt that.
This is a good move from PSG if it can work out for them. You do have access to the Shadow Surge. We're going to see the Zenith but the handshake was absolutely perfect. Jojo just stopping any kind of engage from coming in.
Great job from Jojo, and especially when you didn't have your jungler here in the bot side. Like, oftentimes you'll see junglers shadow this push in the bot lane because of how important it is and how well it can set up for some of these objectives, but it just guarantees now that Red Canids should be able to get this Rift Herald. You've got the move now from bot side, you've lost control of the priority in mid because Grevthar was free to push in, and Red just have more control over the map.
Well, you do a push in top lane, so it is going to be Hanabi moving over first. Juhan going to catch out that ward just to the left of the mid tower, and we're starting to see those small little movements. Both teams eking towards each other, inching towards potentially a fight.
I'm surprised though, because Red actually didn't move at the timing that you'd expect it to. Like, you could have actually moved up fairly quickly, but now that they've delayed this, you're looking at like Kaiwing hits level 6, Jojo still waiting on his ultimate to be available, and you've missed a little bit of your timing window. So you've actually got a chance here as PSG Talon to push out these waves and look for a contest.
Red are kind of in two minds right now. They're not really committing to the drag. They're actually completely disengaging from the Rift Herald and saying, look, Aegis, you're going to go towards a bot side. We don't need to go for this just yet. You now have 3 people showing in mid for PSG. So this is honestly just Red saying, look, PSG, you're trying to call our bluff. We bluff your bluff. So we're not actually going to go for it at all.
Well, I'm just being double bluff. Oh, okay, Vayno's going to be all right. But I think realistically, like, this is where Red Canids should be picking up these advantages, right? Like, you're looking in a position where, okay, you were hoping that you'd have some sort of control on bot side, we can move up, but we're not getting that. Instead now, Aegis is going to be spot on bot side, which means you can actually look already at both Wukong and Vex moving down. Like, PSG Talon, the defensive vision is there.
Got the defensive vision. Aegis has now been spotted out. He's going to try and walk away from this, flags and drags, as he kind of realizes there was nobody in view in the mid lane. And everything kind of breaks down. I will say it is still being CS advantages. It is still bringing small little bits of gold over the side of the Red Canids, but again, both teams, I think, recognize the gravity of this game. This could decide whether or not you continue into the next week of Rumble, or you have a massive game against the fast-paced Wildcats.
Yeah, and this is something that you've got to be so careful of, because it means you can't miss out on chances. It means that you're not as confident to go for the plays that you know you should be going for. Now, Red Canids will start up the Rift Herald with the resets coming through from PSG Talon, just using that little bit of a tempo advantage that they had, so we'll still get the big objective. And I think the main point I'd like to see them here is use this mid so they can try and crack open that mid lane structure.
And the big thing as well to notice here is that Red recognized that there was access to the solar flare, but they're flash in. Juhan trying to go for something. They don't have the flag and drag just yet, and Aegis has got himself a little bit of extra time, but it's not going to mean anything. He picks up the Rift Herald, but they do trade back first blood.
Yeah, just a bit of a panic there from Aegis. As we were saying, a lot of pressure on this game, and Aegis ends up burning the flash instead of just tanking up that initial ultimate from the Wukong, then being able to flash over the wall. So without the flag and drag, without anything to do, it's just a nice pickup from PSG Talon. Will, though, see that the Rift Herald does go across, so it means that you at least should be able to try and get some goal back here as Red Canids in the coming moments.
We saw a little flavor of what both these team fights can do. We literally saw a great dive onto a single individual, but we also saw the turnaround that's potentially there. The hostile takeover can do damage in a bigger fight.
The thing is, though, we've now got Dragon in 6 seconds, and Juhan doesn't have his ult available. So this is actually going to be a little bit of a win here for Red Canids. You won't get Cheaton's ult available either, but you're still missing out a lot from PSG. So I feel like if Red Canids actually start to contest this, they should be in a good spot.
Oh, they're just wrapping around. Juhan now realizes he's in a bad position. They do get the dummy decoy out of him, but he's nowhere else to go. No flash, no ultimate, no life. And that is going to be the Dragon secured. And this is Red starting to pick up the pace.
And this is now Red going, hey, look, if we can keep these advantages going, if we can actually force these early neutral fights, this is where our composition is stronger. So Red Canids coming in with a very deliberate game plan about how they wanted to play around these neutral objectives, and they're executing well.
So maybe a little bit of a cheeky brush play coming out from the PSG bot lane, but Kaiwing and Unified rightfully decide not to contest one, and we got ourselves an Infernal Rift. So gold lead only about 500, nothing really to write home about, but so far all 3 neutral objectives have gone the side of Red. They have the Rift Herald in pocket to use wherever they see fit.
Yeah, and it does feel like at the moment Red kind of hold the cards, and it's going to be on PSG to try and disrupt that. I think the best way for them to try and do it is like find moments where Juhan and Bay maybe can push in mid, group onto bot side, maybe look for something on towards like Jojo and Cheaton, but it's still going to be really tough because the hostile takeover against what PSG Talon have is just so good, especially if you look for like terror dives and stuff. It's actually quite hard to dive this Renata because of that ultimate.
I mean, the gold lead is basically a couple of hundred in top and jungle. Everywhere else is actually exactly even. There's like 20 to 30 gold difference between mid and bot. So this is incredibly tentative, and it feels like it is going to be one of those games that is incredibly close until it isn't.
They're winning until they lost.
Honestly, Skara had it. He had it right years ago, and it just kept going. They were winning the game right up until they lost. But again, it does feel like that, because right now you are looking at 2 teams that are just very, very tentative to how they look for these fights, and we are starting to see those first MasterCard mythics coming out. The Gore Drinker, the Luden's Tempest. These are big item spikes that are coming out for both sides.
And I think this is where, again, you're kind of waiting on one more item here for Red Canids before you really pop off. Like, that seems to be the point where, you got the Manamune completed, you got the Triforce completed for Cheaton, Grevthar will have the Horizon focus. Like, this is where it becomes real scary for PSG Talon. And that's why I kind of want to see the mid lane talent, or the mid lane tower prioritized here by Red Canids, because I feel like if you get that down with the Herald, you should have been able to start to move Grevthar around the map, use those long walls, but going to try and give Guigo a little bit more love up here.
Stopped Hanabi's recall, but Guigo might have gone a bit too far forward. He's going to flash away from the Ornn Horn and try and get the re-engage going in. Juhan uses the Cyclone, but the Shadow Surge is fantastic. You cannot out-team fight this team. They have too many engage tools. They have too many ways to disrupt what you're trying to do.
And just a great setup from Juhan there. Manages to dodge away from the Infernal Chains, means he doesn't get locked up, comes back out with the ultimate, sets up perfectly for the follow-up of Bay, and that is just a small taste of what this PSG Talon lineup can do when they find that opportunity.
This is where, again, Red's kind of faltered. They had everything going for him. He could have just let Hanabi go. He could have just let him go. They could have gotten the tower. It would have meant to, but he gets a little bit too greedy.
Yeah, and you can just see there, like, there's no minion wave in mid lane, so both mid laners can go up here, but I mean, if you're looking at close range AoE, Vex is going to win that fight every single time. The CC she provides, the damage as well. It's just a perfect spot for Juhan and Bey to pop off, with Hanabi providing even more of that close quarters CC.
Despite all those plates going over, he basically effectively got actually losing out in the trade. You get 2 plates, but you lose 2 kills, so it's 320 versus 600, not including the assist gold. So that's a lot of money going back over to PSG.
Also, just the fact you had the Dark Seal already for base, the sitting on 4 stacks of that as well, just adding more into the equation, and just giving a bit more control towards PSG, because the biggest thing right now is about trying to get control over this mid lane, like set up for this dragon in a minute and a half, and that's why you can see Kaiwing and Bey here starting to set up that control now. Guigo will get topside and should be able to kind of push this wave in to give a little bit of warning to Hanabi, but certainly have to see if he's going to be able to have that big impact, find that flank that this Aatrox will want in the fight in just over a minute.
See, Cheetan hasn't gone back yet, still waiting to finish up his Triforce. Well, you have got a Kraken Slayer alongside a Serrated Dirk for Unified, so he is on lethal range. He gets a Q off, or maybe even a W on top of Cheetan. He can just ult in straight away, stop him, and honestly delete him from Summoner's Rift.
And I think you got to be very, very careful here as Cheetan and Grevthar. At least you have both these flashes up, so when you get this big engagement through PSG Talon, you have a little bit more to work with. Even have the cleanse for Cheetan as well, but certainly there is going to be a lot of pressure coming through for PSG Talon quite quickly at this next fight. And as you were saying, like, mythic items already starting to come through across the board for PSG Talon, so they should be in a relatively good spot. But if Red can kind of avoid that initial engage, Jojo can set up with the hostile takeover, it should be Red who can try and play off this big game fight.
We're going to start seeing them now moving towards either the Rift Herald, which has already spawned, or the Dragon in 20 seconds. Red are in the good position of saying, look, we don't have to take any fight we do not feel comfortable with because we already have 2 Dragons stacked. Maybe they want to try and go for a little bit of both because they are starting to try and put pressure around this mid side. You can see already the Aegis is starting himself up on the Rift Herald. TP's going to be coming out, and that's already straight over towards the Dragon. So it's just going to be a trade of objectives. Red taking the handshake and saying, look, we don't want this Dragon right now. We're still trying to get up the power spikes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could have fought this potentially as Red Canids, but without having control of the mid, without having vision control set up, they just weren't able to do it. And I mean, good shout out to Kaiwing there. Like, he'd look at a mid in 30 as that Dragon was coming up. He'd already moved into River and already put down in front of these pinks, and Red were just like, cool, we're going to trade this for the Rift Herald instead, see if we can try and use this to break down a few more towers and quickly collapse onto this top side. And I mean, PSG just staying too long on the map.
Yeah, this is it. This is the quick rotations coming out from Red, and they have Shelly, so they might even have to use her right now because they're just pushing in so much pressure. What are you going to do as Hanabi and Bey right now? You're still waiting on your big engage tools, and they're just going to trade back the turrets. So this is just Red playing smart around the map. Yes, you get pushed in on bot side from Unify, but it's still a tier 2 and top side.
And this is what we talked about. Oh, hang on, we might get caught now. With Red is that they do seem to have a better understanding than like PSG or Fast Pay Wildcats on how they try and interact around the map, how they can kind of keep these advantages going. Now, it is a very slim advantage for themselves at the moment, literally 1,000 gold, but you can start to see, okay, well, that's a tier 2 tower gone, still have Rift Herald in their back pockets. You can push in now as Guigo super deep in this top side, rotate in towards the mid lane, and start to try and catch out PSG Talon. But just to give PSG Talon their due as well, they have a lot of vision control established on this top side, like that defensive vision in their own jungle, so trying to make that move will be hard as Guigo.
This feels like we are starting to get to a point. It will just have nothing happen and then the one big fight. This is what it's all been building up towards. Neither team has given an inch. Neither team has taken a mile. But at the same time, you make one bad move, one bad fight now at this stage in the game, coming up to 20 minutes. That could be Baron. That could be more than just a tier 1 or a tier 2. It could be your entire base.
Could be your tournament. I mean, with how close and how the rock, paper, scissors has been working out so far, this win is desperately needed on both sides. And for PSG Talon, I mean, this is a region that holds a lot of pride coming into this. I mean, the PCS has been phenomenal for many, many international events. I mean, getting to semi-finals for the last MSI event, eventually falling to Ornn in that 3-1. For them, they want to prove that even with their roster changing, losing River, Maple, Doggo, they're still a force to be reckoned with.
They are indeed, but they are going to find themselves a lot of damage on the Bey. US a flash away. Aegis did not realize that 2 more people were sitting here. Good hostile takeover puts down Kaiwing down to about half his own HP, but this is it. This is the moments you're starting to look at right now and trying to see if you can get any kind of solidified advantage.
Yeah, and look, realistically, You do burn flash to flash, but at least these ultimates are going to be back up in time for like some of the major objectives, right? For Red, it's about forcing your control of the bottom side. Now, you're going to be able to take this turret as well, but it is being responded in the mid lane, so we'll have to see if Red Canids can get there in time before that mid tower falls, and looks like they will.
Feel the tension. I can feel everything just bubbling over. You now have 2 items on top of Unified. He's got a Collector and a Kraken Slayer. He is slowly but surely becoming a little bit of a monster right now. You are, of course, building up towards the second item on the Vex as well. And even on the Grevthar, it looks like he's going to be able to have that Shadow Flame before the next significant fight in a minute 45. And this is where the game, it does become down to, do you hit the one trouble bubble? Do you get the, you know, the one area of the map that no one sees the Wukong go into? These are the small moments that could make or break your entire tournament. And neither team wants to be the reason they lose.
I have to say though, like for PSG, they've been doing a really good job of every time we're getting up to these neutrals. Like look at Kaiwing again, right? Vision control being established in the area, making sure that there aren't like positions for Guigo to find these flank opportunities. Aegis can't really get in a position either. So it's all about how PSG are setting up for the neutrals and why in that last Dragon, we actually saw Red Canids giving it up. They're like, look, you know what? We don't have control over this area. You can't really go for this. But with a minute until the next Dragon, now we're seeing the resets come through. Red Canids should be able to get control over the mid lane and then move over in towards Dragon.
Second item, Sorelda's Grudge here for Guigo. So he's going full damage. He's looking to assassinate either the Vex or the Kai'Sa in the backside.
I mean, it's all about armor pen with this, right? Like he's going, hey, look, I need something that can actually help me get through Hanabi because right now I don't have any of that damage because of the super tank that this Ornn is becoming. So a really interesting build path that we haven't really seen a huge amount, but adapting to just how tanky the front line of Hanabi, Juhan, and Kaiwing are.
You can see right now, PSG, they're expecting the side of Red to go for this Dragon, which is going to be spawning in 25 seconds. Give a quick look. The only flash not available is going to be Bay and Aegis, respectfully. Juhan takes about half his HP from a paddle star. To be a Mystic Shot and 2, and this is going to make this fight very difficult now for PSG.
And this is where, as Red, you want to make sure you're not playing around choke points. You want to be trying to use your long range, make sure you're denying PSG entrance into River, but if you ever walk into one of these chokes, that's where it gets super dangerous because the AoE for PSG Talon, but PSG trying to flank around, get themselves into a good position.
Here we go, we can see not great offensive vision for either team. They do, however, both have vision on the objective. That's the important thing right now for both of these sides. So you can see Kaiwing just sitting in the brush, making sure they're not going for it just yet. And Red will start up the Dragon once more, but this vision toggling is fantastic because it just shows you just how hard it is for either side to really go for this. Here we go. Dragon down to 2,000 HP. They flash in with Juhan. There's the Shadow Surge and he gets on the backside. It is secure for the side of Red, but they've already got 2 kills for the Vex. They're going to be able to absolutely clean this fight. Triple kill for Bay. And in one instant, yes, you get the Dragon, but you lose the fight.
It's the Dragon for Red, but it's the Baron for PSG. The team fight was too strong from the PCS representatives. And now they can move over towards the neutral, and this was what we were waiting for. This is the team fighting PSG were built for.
And this is the boiling point, the breaking point that we talked about. You hadn't fought. You got to a point now where everything is on this one fight. And sadly, you just haven't got it in you to continue it. After the Dragon is taken, everything is just thrown into this fight, and you can just see how powerful this 5v5 can be.
Yeah, you can see here Hanabi setting up wonderfully with this Ornn ultimate. You get the follow-up from Bay, and even though Aegis has to try and finish the Dragon, like Cheeton taking out the equation, the Zoe doesn't have that front line because the Jarvan is on the Dragon, and PSG just completely bypassed the front line and managed to take down Red Canids.
I would love to see damage in that team fight because it did feel like you said, there we go, thank you so much, asking somebody. They did no, you couldn't do anything because the whole thing with a Zoe and the Ezreal, so you want to try and get your damage down before the fight.
Yeah, and you want to be trying to like pop it in over the wall, make sure you're not being set up for the engages, but I mean, by just starting up the Dragon, they just forced the hand of PSG, and PSG were just happy to play it. So now we'll have to see, as you start to fall further and further behind, what this is going to look like for Red Canids, because this is a composition that does not do well when it doesn't have tempo.
We'll see a fair bit of poke being shoved down here as Bay goes up towards the side lane. He's going to be able to take a tier 1, but you've got Aatrox going off on the side, so they're trading this one up for the side of Red. They are not to be outdone just yet. And they are still making sure that this Baron power play doesn't actually have a huge amount of yield as of the moment for PSG.
I mean, it will eventually start to pay dividends, right? There's a lot of standing gold on the map here for PSG. You're looking at like top tier 2 now. Red are doing a decent job of like trading back themselves with, you know, getting that Terror bot, and now potentially moving in towards this one in mid lane. We actually have to be careful of being engaged on here in the mid lane. Juhan is in place.
Yeah, and look at Bay as well. Maybe they'll try and TP into this one here, but Juhan recognizes the Cyclone just to disengage rather than anything else, because if he gets killed and taken out, they can't really go for that big 5v5.
But they'd already kind of given up on this top side of the map because they thought they were going for that play, so they don't even get the tier 2 and top side. So realistically, I mean, Red Canids again kind of just outplaying the map state, and PSG Talon not quite getting as much as they were hoping from for the Baron. But again, you do have the better skating opportunities here for being PSG. Like, they should be in a reasonably good spot the later this game goes on. The big issue that they're going to have, though, is, you know, Inferno Soul potential here for Red Canids in 2 minutes. And if you do end up giving, like, the poke from this Zoe and this Ezreal more kind of ammo, that's going to be a big issue.
We are starting to see the ornaments come out now as well. You've got the upgraded Everfrost, the upgraded Kraken Slayer as well, and this is just little small stats that will help you on your way. The gold lead is 3,000, a little bit more, maybe 3.5, but it's not as significant as you would probably hope it to be. As you can see there, Juhan clearing out the vision, but Bay's found Cheetan, and Cheetan goes over the wall with no flash, no way to go, and he's just deleted 1v1.
And what has been such a good tournament so far for Red Canids, starting to come off the wheels a little bit, not able to get themselves set up correctly. This team fight and this presence from PSG Talon has just been so good, and you can even see like Guigo pushing in bot side, but it's not going to get you anything, whereas PSG Talon, they're going to crack open the base.
They might be able to do it. They do have the cannon minion left there, and they're full 5-man. Not only going to be able to crack the base, they're going to be able to get the inhibitor as well. So with a minute 13 to go, we are going to see them now put pressure into the side waves, make sure they are set up for success, and it does feel like Red are a little bit lost as to what to do, and honestly, I can't really blame them, because PSG are saying, look, we play this, we go forward. If you haven't set up a full vision control, you are going to get caught out.
But this is why I needed to see Red Canids kind of get the ball rolling early, right? I wanted to see them very quickly go up towards the Rift Tower, use the maps that they had, but we didn't get at Rift Tower #1, and now you're starting to see that although they have the items that they want, yeah, it's just unfortunate for Cheetan. Even though you don't, or you have the items where in theory you should be strong, you're just not quite able to do enough with it because of the control of the map PSG Talon have, and because of the way this composition functions.
And the top wave is going to be taking down that turret. You can see that on your mini map, and that's why we had the TP come in from the side of PSG.
Yeah, I will also say I'm not a big fan of the build from Aegis going for this death stance. Only really works when you're ahead, but Dragon is going to be up and available, and Cheetan's playing in the front line.
Shadow Surge, and he gets on top of the back line. That is massive! Bay saw the opportunity, and it's all a formality now. He flies all the way. PSG going to be taking control of this series.
This is Bay's day, 8-0-2 on the Vex. A beautiful engage, and PSG Talon are going to draw first blood on day #4.
First blood and put themselves up in 2-1 in the group. A fantastic game for them. Slow, methodical, but at the end of the day, they get the result.
Yeah, and I mean, playing to their comfort style, playing to what we saw from them yesterday. Look at these neutral objectives. Look for these big 5v5 wins. This was such a strong performance from PSG Talon. And look, Red Canids did their best. They started to roam around the map, see if they could try and get some sort of control back in the game. But the team fight from PSG, just too strong.
And look, we were saying that it was a little bit one-note. It was very obvious as what the side of PSG wanted to do, but they just executed on it so well. And sometimes the easier to execute comp is just going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, and again, we're kind of seeing this like style from Red Canids, where they try to play this almost like poke style, as you're saying, like try to take advantage in the early stages, but we just never really got the opportunity from Aegis to like find these moments to get in towards lanes, you know, influence the map. It felt like you had like 3 pushing lanes that you didn't really do a huge amount with, and PSG Talon were like, cool, as long as we stay within, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 gold of you, we're gonna be totally fine when we hit these late game fights.
Now for Red Canids and for CBLOL, you're in a very difficult position. You have to win one of your last 2 games, and even then, even if you beat the fast-paced Wildcats, you gotta hope that they beat PSG and you force a tiebreaker. That's where you're at right now, and sadly, it means you're your destiny's not in your own hands.
Yeah, and that's always kind of the heartbreaking thing, and we'll have to see, especially for Red Canids, what the data's hold, because we've seen the rock paper scissors already between these three teams, but at least when you look towards it, it's kind of been a little bit flipped now. So PSG Talon able to get one back against Red Canids. They've already beaten Istanbul Wildcats, so if you're a PSG Talon fan, you're going to be feeling pretty damn good about it.
Yeah, you're going to be feeling pretty great, but we're going to be heading for a break. But as we go, take a moment to listen in on the IW in their win against Red on day 2 of MSI in Sounds of the Game, presented by Bose.
Ben ne arayayım?
Greves'i gördük.
Adamlar istiyor.
Alistar'ın flash'ı var. Alistar'ın flash'ı var. Dikkat edin. Alistar'a bak, ultisi yok.
Ben uzaktayım.
Okey, geri. Çok
Güzel,
iyi. Ultileri yok.
Abi tut.
Nice, flash'ı yok. Buraya bakılabilir.
Ben yavaştan yürüyorum. Ultim yok hala.
Jin'e bakacağım.
Hala ultim yok.
Jin'e bakacağım. Baktım
Kemil yok.
Şuna bak.
Jin.
Yok mu damage?
Jin'e damage.
Jin öldü.
TP'ye dikkat.
Ultim 10 saniye.
Kemil'e dikkat.
Kemil oynayın. Sal geliyor.
Sonra ultisi dönecek
geliyor
yakında.
ben.
Aşağı Graves
Graves'e
geliyor.
dikkat.
Şuna bak bakayım.
Graves.
Graves.
Ultiye.
Sonra kesti
Yavaş
belki.
oyna.
Sonra kesecek.
Manam yok.
Sonra
Öldü bu.
Manam yok.
Drake alın.
Biri kafa atabilir.
Tamam, ben atıyorum, stop başım var.
Dur bekle. Herkes gelsin.
Alistar burada.
Okey.
bak buna,
Yavaş.
Bastım stop başı Kemil'e.
Ben Kemil'i aldım.
Nice.
Alistar var HP.
Yavaş
Kemil'i
oyna,
kesmeye
yavaş
oynayabilir
oyna.
miyiz?
Kemil ölüyor gibi ama.
Nautilus blok.
Kemil'e bak.
Rest aldım.
Geliyor.
Ultiledim oraya.
Bak buraya.
Let's go.
Jin no flash.
Galio'ya bak belki.
Jin no flash.
Helal, nice.
Helal.
Biter mi? 40 dakika.
Bilmiyorum.
Ölme.
Biter.
Helal size be.
Helal lan size.
Düzgün pushla.
Bitiyor mu?
Bitiyor.
Bitir amına koyayım.
Bize sağ.
The world is watching. Get on board. Check the lanes. Pay attention to the best. Join the ranks. Be the challenger. All in for the trophy. This is for all senses. This is for all players. Buckle up. Take notes. MSI 2022. Driven by Mercedes EQ.
Red Bull gives you wings.